Dun 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 dun! Dun 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 dun! Elbaph! Yeah, I ran out of all of my weapon props, so I'm just gonna start using random stuff I find around my house. This week it's a plunger. Elbaph plunger! Hey! A plunger can be used as a Viking weapon. I mean, I'm sure a Viking could figure out a way to kill somebody with this, right? Okay, so stay tuned for that. Hello everybody, Techie 101 here. In today's episode of this, we're going to be talking about One Piece chapter 1152 review. That was a really bad intro, but there's so much going on today that we just need to move forward, alright? It's titled An Awful Day. An awful day. I would think so, given what's happening right now with the Giants. You know, Dory and Bragi have turned evil. Emu is taking over. This is just going to be the chapter where Emu wins, right? Emu turns all the Straw Hats evil. You know, Luffy and the gang get there too late. You know, Hiruden just throws himself off of the tree in shame. Loki stays chained up, I guess, and that's it. That's just the end of the story, right? Okay. Well, anyway, we continue on Yamato's cover series, Yamato and the Holy Inari Shrine Pilgrimage, Volume 36. Yamato delivers the Straw Hat to Kawamatsu. Now listen. A lot of stuff goes down in this chapter, so ordinarily I would just skip over this, but Kawamatsu is my favorite scabbard, so I will dedicate at least the next 30 seconds to this, and then we need to move on, okay? So Kawamatsu receives his straw hat, he tries it on, he's really happy, it's so great to see Kawamatsu again. He's the daimyo of Hakumai, isn't that cool? He's going up there in the world, I wish him the best. Hey look, there's no crime, or there's nothing going on in the background at Hakumai. Seems like he's a really good leader. Doesn't seem to be an issue with mass kidnapping in his region of Wano. I'm just saying, Page 1 and Ulti are there. Kawamatsu doesn't seem to have a problem. He seems to trust them. Everything seems good. Everyone's smiling and having a great time. All right, was that good? I think that was probably over 30 seconds, but that's okay because it's for Kawamatsu. All right, so we continue down in the primordial world, all right? We still see some Conqueror's Haki lightning bolts firing off. Remember, this is happening like concurrently to what was happening before. So when Chopper went after Scopper and jumped off the side of the tree, right? That was before Emu had possessed Gunko and before the giant burst of Conqueror's lightning was happening, right? It wasn't until a little few moments after that when Luffy and everybody had rendezvoused with Chopper that all of a sudden, boom, giant lightning bolt and everyone's terrified, right? Okay? So that's still firing off upstairs. And so the giants are like, okay, we need to get to the lift, like the elevator thing to like hoist us back up to the sun layer to see what's going on. You know, Chopper, that's going to be confusing. And Chopper is staying with Scopper in this chapter, so it's going to be even more confusing in the future. But anyway, Chopper explained, like, not everything because he wasn't there for the whole Emu possession bit, but he at least explained it like, yeah, the God's Knights are up there, and they're crazy powerful, and there's nightmare monsters everywhere stomping around. Luffy, you need to save us, right? So we have the new Giant Warrior Pirates heading over to the lift. We have Stanson, Road, and Goldberg that are all rushing over and ready to head on up. So they're just waiting for Hiruden, their captain, of course, and the Straw Hat Pirates, okay? Gerd is staying behind. In fact, they even open it up by saying, hey, Gerd, take care of that sack of crap while we're gone. And I'm like, yeah, that's about right to talk about Road. Oh, I mean Loki. Sorry, I don't know if Loki deserves that. Road kind of does. But at any rate, yeah, they're planning on not taking Loki. So Road actually is really energized to help out. You know, you think he would be scared. Last time when he felt the Conqueror's burst at the end of the last chapter, he was like, eee! You know, he was like screaming, but now he's just like, oh, do not worry, Gerd. I will dedicate my mind, body, and soul to saving the day, right? Hey, all I'm saying is Road has a katana. Road has a katana. He's a weeb. He's gonna do something either really cringeworthy or really badass with that katana, and I'm looking forward to it. Goldberg, of course, has the shield, Nash, and Stanson just kind of has a big-ass hammer. That's all you need. Hey, Loki has a big-ass hammer, too, so that's all you really need in combat, right? So they're going over to the lift. The lift actually has an interesting design. It looks like two canoes on top of each other, if that makes sense. Like there's a Viking long canoe, and then there's another one above it that has like all the gears and the chain, and you get on it, and I guess Stanson would like hoist up with the, you know, the chain to get them up to the sun layer. So at any rate, yeah, Gerd is staying behind, and Chopper is also staying behind. Chopper says, Luffy, I gotta stay with Scopper. For one thing, I gotta talk to him about a lot of stuff, but also our names rhyme, so I just feel like Scopper and Chopper, we're the best team to actually show up and hang out, right? So he does say to Luffy, like, yeah, Yasan's wounds are really, really severe. I should not leave him, you know? Now, yes, Gerd is there as well, and she is indeed also a doctor, but it might be better, you know, for, you know, Gerd has really large hands. I don't know if she could, like, medically suture up, you know, Scopper. I think it's probably best for Chopper to stay there behind. Also, Chopper's sort of like, listen, Chopper did his due, okay? He did the thing he was supposed to do. He jumped after Scopper. He saved his life. Would Scopper have just died, by the way, if he would have just fallen off the sun layer and slammed into the primordial world? He was falling at terminal velocity into a frozen mountain range. I think it's pretty fair to say Chopper saved his damn life right there. But at the same time, Chopper's like, hey, Luffy, I'm gonna stay down here. You have fun up in that shit. You have fun up fighting all those crazy people. I think it's best if I stay down here. Hey, if you guys lose, I'm probably dead as well, so whatever. I'm gonna stay behind and help Scopper, right? Alright, so Luffy's like, oh yeah, sure, Chopper, I got it. Don't worry, make sure he's okay. Then meanwhile, Scopper looks over at Luffy, and he gets really serious, really serial. And he's like, hey, wait a minute. Straw Hat Luffy, be mindful of the way you use your Conqueror's Haki. Those guys, they might say they're immortal, but that's a bunch of baloney. Luffy, I know I mentioned baloney, but just calm down. You know, if he did say that, Luffy would be like, ah, baloney. I don't know, focus. Focus here. I'm the elderly badass, you know? I'm more of an elderly badass than Rayleigh, so pay attention to your elders, all right? Be mindful of the way you use your Conqueror's Haki, and you could slice right through their immortality. Alright? So Luffy just kind of strikes a fighting pose, and he's like, Yosh! Yes, you can count on me. Do not worry about it. I got it, old man. I'll save Colin and all of his friends, and no matter what. So, Scopper doesn't really give Luffy any kind of direct advice on how to bypass the immortality. He just kind of tells him, like, be careful of how you use your Conquerors, or focus on how you use your Conquerors. You know, don't just jump up there and start firing off your Conqueror's Haki all willy-nilly. You know, maybe focus point. I don't know. I feel like Scopper could have maybe given a little bit more of a step-by-step instruction for this. I know time is of the essence, but he could have said something along the lines of like, Luffy, what you're gonna want to do is focus all your Conqueror's Haki into one punch and then hit him really hard with it. That's how you beat him. Luffy would be like, oh yeah, I could do that. I would figure that out. That's great. So anyway, we also have Loki there. Loki seems to be doing good. He's no longer lying down. He kind of gets back up. He's sitting up. He's still covered in bandages and all that. He's still hooked up with all the IVs. But he's like, wait a minute. Gaban, what you just said made it click. I wasn't able to put it into words before, and I wasn't able to understand my own power, but I'm the one that's fought those God's Knights before. I know I can help you. I know I can beat them this time. Just let me go. Give me a chance to prove myself. Put me in, coach. I can do this. Right? Now, I don't know. I guess what he's referring to is when he fought against the God's Knights when Shamrock and Gunko were there. There is also the flashback we're going to get later on in this chapter. We're actually going to get 2 flashbacks in this chapter. So we're really hyping this up. But, it's possible maybe he would have encountered them before. They did say earlier that he did not encounter the God's Knights while he was out gallivanting around the world. So, but there is another flashback where he was in Elbaph and they might have gotten involved. Or he was simply just referring to Shamrock and Gunko, just like recently attacking him, right? But he does say, he's like, hey, you know, that advice, using your Conqueror's Haki. Yeah, I couldn't figure that out before, but I know what to do now. Let me go and I can help you. And Hiruden is just like, let you go? You fighting for Elbaph? Ugh, I'd never take you with us. You're the shame of Elbaph, Loki. You ruined this country. What's making you just gonna switch sides and go fight for the enemy? Hell no, I'm not letting you go, right? So Hiruden is definitely against it. Hiruden is like, you're not tricking me. You've tricked me before, Loki. I'm not letting you go. It doesn't matter what you say, right? Meanwhile, Scopper once again, he looks over now at Zoro and Sanji, and he's like, by the way, Luffy, there is another Conqueror's user on your crew. And I love this scene with Sanji, man. Sanji is just, he immediately just starts grinning, ear to ear, and just rushes over to Gaban, and is just like, hey, it's me, right? Yeah, I knew it was me. I wasn't going to get outshined by Jinbei and Zoro anymore, right? I'll tell you what, the other day I was in the kitchen preparing some tuna, and then all of a sudden I could feel it. The disposition of a conqueror. I knew I probably had it, right? In this world where these magic powers are known to exist, right? And you can unlock Haki, because, Sanji learned all about it on the Kamabaka Queendom with Ivankov and everything like that. It would be fascinating if Sanji is just sitting around every night being like, do I have Conqueror's Haki? Can I just, unlock it? Try to use Force Lightning or something? I don't know. I mean, you could try. Probably aren't going to get very far, but you could try, right? So Sanji is, of course, really excited and thinking that it's him that has Conqueror's Haki. But, of course, we know that it's not because we've read the Wano arc. We know, in fact, it is Zoro. So Scopper looks over at Zoro and says, hey, you, swordsman. Yeah. Your body seems to be accustoming? Okay, let's try that again. Take two. Hey there, swordsman. Your body seems to be growing accustomed to it rather well. Use the Conqueror's Haki. And then there's just a moment. This is the perfect point in the anime. There needs to be a 5-second pause of just uninterrupted, wait, I have Conqueror's Haki? And then everybody is just like, what? And so everybody does do that. What? Sanji feels really upset. Zoro is just completely oblivious to the whole thing. He's like, wait a minute. I have Conqueror's Haki? This is fascinating to me because this implies that he went that entire fight with King, slicing up King. He had his swords, Haki pouring off of his swords like, I'm the king of hell, and charging after King, who sends out this huge magma dragon at him. Zoro cuts right through that shit like butter, slices him down, an enemy where he was previously unable to harm, because of the Lunarian shit, right? Zoro's able to slice that guy down. And he never stopped for 5 seconds to think, wait a minute. That was freaking weird. Do I have Conqueror's Haki or something? Nah, must just be the magic hell sword that I picked up. That was probably the reason I was able to do that. Okay, to be fair, yeah, I could see Zoro just thinking it's probably the magic hell sword that probably did that, right? But at any rate, he didn't know. And so Luffy is shocked as well. He's like, wait a minute, Zoro, you don't know? It's been oozing off of you like crazy. Which also implies Luffy knew this, could feel it, could feel the vibes off of Zoro, and never mentioned it. Then again, once again, completely in line with Luffy's character, Luffy, I don't know, gets reunited with the Straw Hats at the end of Wano. They're going to Egghead. I guess Luffy realizes, oh, Zoro has Conqueror's Haki now. Good for him. As if Luffy would drink tea. He's probably like, Zoro has Conqueror's Haki now. Good for him. And just eats his big mutton or whatever like that. That's probably what happened, to be honest with you, right? Now, Jinbei, though, Jinbei should have also have sensed this, okay? He's way older and he knows way more about Haki. He probably should have sensed this and probably have said something. I don't know. Maybe Jinbei was just he was brand new to the crew. Maybe he's like, well, Zoro's Conqueror's Haki. I guess everybody knows about that. I mean, nobody's saying anything. I assume everybody knew. Okay. And whatever. Anyway, so Zoro is just like, I have Conquerors? And Scopper is just like, this is absurd. Haki only works when you know about the power. A technique's name is 1,000 times greater when you know its name than when you do not. Now, Zoro, say my name out loud. This is advice from Bleach. But anyway, no, I mean, like, he mentions, like, you don't even know you had the power! You have the power, Zoro! So now he says to him, he kind of admonishes Zoro a little bit. He's just like, listen, your captain is one of the emperors, for God's sake. Get it in gear, man! You are a Yonko commander. Yonko Commander Zoro. Alright? You should know the kind of powers you have. And Zoro is just kind of like, yeah, my bad. I got it now. I figured it out. Okay. I have Conqueror's Haki. Shit. You know, I also want to think that Zoro flashes back to that moment during the festival at Wano when the whole festival shakes and Brook looks to him and Brook is like, wait a minute, yo, did you use your Conqueror's Haki, Zoro? And Zoro's like, don't be a fool, I don't have that. And then maybe Zoro's flashing back to that moment like, Brook knew I had Conquerors this whole time. Why didn't I listen? Holy crap, I'm getting yelled at by an old man now. This isn't good, right? So this is actually fascinating. I was kind of only half joking about the Bleach reference, you know, about not knowing a technique's name. The fact is that Zoro did not know he had Conquerors, so he wasn't trying to use it. It was just like a subconscious thing that was just leaking out of him, right? Now that he knows what that feeling is like, and he can actually, like, wait a minute, okay, I know I have Conquerors, so I'm gonna take that weird feeling, channel it into my magic hell sword, and I'm gonna slice a bunch of giants in half. Well, like evil giants, but you know what I mean. I'm gonna slice some God's Knights in half, alright? That's pretty damn cool. So, yeah, there's Zoro's power-up. He was told that he has a power-up. I mean, there you go, right? Did you ever do that? Are you playing an RPG or something and you're just like, whoa, when did I get this ability? You know, I was like, all right, there we are. Okay. So, Sanji, now this is an interesting scene. I wanna point this out here. Sanji does go over to Gaban one more time and is kind of pointing at himself like, hey, old man, what about me? Do you have magical Haki sight? Can you tell me? Do I have Conquerors? Do I have the disposition of a king? Can I unlock it? I'm almost there, right? Like just a little bit. Now, this is playing off as a joke for a moment, but let me just explain to you the sequence at which these panels are shown, okay? So, on this page, at the very top of this page, the first panel on the right side of the page is Sanji going over and like, hey, Gaban, what about me? What about me? The middle panel of the top of the page is Loki, and Loki is shouting his head off. He is just like, Hyruden, you pathetic son of a gun! Why don't you just let me out and so I can save our homeland together, right? He's just shouting and screaming, I'm right here! Come on, use me! I'm your greatest asset right now, right? Okay, so he's shouting. Then, the third panel is back to Sanji. And we don't see Sanji's face. We just see the back of Sanji's head still talking to Gaban. We don't get anything. We don't get an onomatopoeia. We don't get like an exclamation point or a question mark or anything like that over Sanji's face. It's just weird to me. And then the rest of the page is like Loki and Hyruden arguing. So it's weird that, like, Sanji's like, hey, what about me? And then Loki starts shouting his head off, and then you just see one single panel of Sanji, like, kind of just half of his face, and his mouth is open, kind of shouting. So, I'm not saying that Gaban secretly told Sanji, like, you also got it, kid. You also got the Conquerors. No, but what if Scopper told Sanji something along the lines of, like, some of us are cut out to be Conquerors, and some of us are not. Some of us are meant to have this ability, and some of us don't. And that's just how it is. Or, you know, considering the fact that Zoro and Sanji are both the wings of the Pirate King, the idea that Sanji could also unlock it, maybe that's what Scopper told him. Maybe he told him, hey, you don't have it right now, but you are close. You are close to unlocking it. You just gotta work a little harder, and we don't hear any of that because Loki and Hyruden are shouting their heads off, okay? I'm just saying, if Roger had Conqueror's Haki, and Zoro has Conqueror's Haki, and then Rayleigh had Conqueror's Haki, and then Scopper had Conqueror's Haki, and so Sanji completes the puzzle! Let's give Sanji Conqueror's Haki, why not? could slice up every fish in the all blue with a single burst of his chef's haki. There we go. Anywho, moving on from Sanji Conqueror's hockey talk, because no one wants to discuss that. Moving on back to the sibling rivalry section of the chapter, where Hiruden and Loki are bickering with one another. Did you ever get into massive shouting matches with your younger brother? Yeah. I never have. I never had a brother, so I don't know the context there. All right, so anyway, yeah, Hiruden says, like, hey, if we let you go, how come you're not just going to go out there and side with the Gods Knights and then be our enemy? And, you know, just like you did on that day, how could you expect me to trust you after what happened on that day? All right? So at this point, the other members of the Giant Warrior Pirates, the new Giant Warrior Pirates, are like, hey guys, the lift is ready. I've had it ready for like the last 5 minutes. We gotta get going. We can't let the casualties pile up anymore, right? We gotta go. So Luffy is shouting over to Loki. He's like, okay, I gotta figure out a way to, because like Luffy wants to bring Loki. So he's like, all right, what is the simplest, most efficient way to get Loki out of his chains, to get Hiruden to agree to letting him go? And Luffy arrives at the conclusion of, join my crew, Loki. Hey, Loki, join my crew. Yeah, because Hiruden, you work under me, so therefore, if Loki is part of my crew, then you have to listen to me because he's therefore part of my crew. Logic, right? Okay, so that's like Luffy going about it. Hey, it's not a bad idea. And hey, Loki got the invitation to join the Straw Hats. It's knocked down pretty quickly, but at any rate, Zoro and Sanji are immediately against this because, well, Zoro is like, Luffy, he wouldn't even fit on the ship, all right? And Sanji is like, would you know how much food this guy eats? He eats more than you. I'm done. I wouldn't be able to work. I would be working myself to death trying to make food all the time. Man, I really would need Conqueror's Haki at that point to prepare every single meal. All right, so Zoro and Sanji are immediately against this. And Luffy is just like, yeah, guys, but like, Elbaph doesn't seem to want him, so he seems okay to me. Let's try it out. Let's try to ask him on the crew, you know? If he does anything evil and tries to murder us in our sleep, I'll just beat him up. I gotta love that as Luffy's ultimate, like, hey guys, you don't understand. If he does something bad, I'll just punch him really hard. That solves everything. I mean, it worked with Kaido, and also Katakuri, and also Doflamingo, and Caesar Clown, and Horty Jones, and I'm going through the people. How many people did Luffy punch at Marineford? That's a fun little project. How many people did Luffy punch at Marineford? Kobe, for what? It worked for Kobe. It worked on Kobe. Just like, you know, so like, yeah, that is Luffy's idea, right? Okay, why not? So Loki, though, even though this would give Loki an out. This would actually let him go, this logic. Hiruden doesn't exactly say no. He just kind of strikes the ha face a little bit. Like, hey, Hiruden, you work under me, right? So if Loki's part of my crew, you have to let him go. And Hiruden's like no, what? I mean, yeah, I guess that does make sense, shit, but like, So, Hiruden doesn't really say no to that, but Loki does. Loki is just like, don't screw with me, you little runt. I'm never taking orders from you. I'm my own man. I'll never become anyone's underling. Okay, so, anybody that wanted Loki to join the Straw Hats, that idea is pretty much... Hey, I also had the idea that maybe Loki might have joined the new Giant Warrior Pirates out of this. That's also, so, you know, it's whatever you do. Loki, I really honestly think at this point, after this is all over, if Mosa, his little pen pal, is not on Elbaph, if they are somewhere else out in the world, Loki's probably going to go off on his own and try to save Mosa. Maybe we'll get a cover page there, and then we could cycle back to the final war where Loki will show up for that. I don't know, it's an idea, right? So... that's Luffy's logic of just like, hey, let him go, I'll beat him up if he does something bad. Loki tells him no, and Hiruden is just like, oh, you're really going off your gut here, aren't you? And Luffy's just like, I just can't wait to see how he fights. I want to see Loki in a battle. I mean, to be fair, did you see that chapter where he stood up and he's just like, oh man, this is gonna be cool. Like, Luffy was really excited from that point onward, and he hasn't really gotten a chance to see him fight yet, so yeah. Cutting back over to the lift for the third time now, Stansing, Goldberg, and Road are like, hey guys, Pretty sure children are still being kidnapped and people are dying upstairs. Are you coming or what? So at this point, Hiruden and Luffy and everybody are rushing over to the lift, right? And Hiruden picks up Luffy and he takes him and he's like, Luffy, I'm sorry, but you gotta trust me, all right? He's a condemned criminal. I can't just hand him over to you. You don't understand. He really is not a great person, okay? And so, as everybody is heading toward the lift, Scopper speaks up. Quite a challenge, given the fact he was stabbed 3 times in the chest area. But he speaks up and he's like, Hiruden, release Loki. We need to get this plot train moving, and it ain't working if he's chained up. Imagine if the rest of this manga, Loki just stays chained to a tree and we don't get to see what he does. We gotta let him go at one point. Might as well be now, you know, kind of situation, right? Hiruden goes on to list off all the awful things that Loki has done. He says, 14 years ago, Loki murdered 113 members of the castle guard. There were 2 people that were on vacation that day. They were very lucky, but everybody else, there were 2 people on sick leave that day, but everybody else died, all right? 113 members of the castle guard were killed by Loki. He left Elder Jarl at the brink of death. That sword in his head, that's all Loki. He killed his own father in cold blood, and he's the worst criminal our country's ever known. All right? So we then have Scopper speak up in Loki's defense. And this also paints a little bit of, you'll see where this goes, okay? He's like, I know, Hiruden. I was there too. But I felt some weird Haki coming from the castle that day when Harold was killed. Maybe Shanks and maybe we didn't have the whole story. Maybe we didn't investigate everything. So, we're going to get this in a flashback here in a moment, but 14 years ago when Harold was killed, Shanks and Gaban were in Elbaph at that time. And what it seems to imply is why everybody's on the same page here, that Loki murdered Harold, is that it was probably the testimony of Gaban and Shanks, 2 very highly trusted people to the Giants. They went to go investigate the castle. They probably saw Loki in the act with a bunch of butchered guards all around him and stabbing Harold's like head off or whatever. And then Jarl with a freaking sword in his head, right? Okay? So Shanks and Gaban probably walked in on that, saw it for what it was, and was like, oh my god, this is what we saw. This is what happened. And they're trustworthy, so everybody on Elbaph believed them. And it wasn't like they were lying. Gaban and Shanks are also, they probably walked in on the castle and saw this go down, and they were like, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Yeah. Okay. Like, if literally Loki was standing in the throne room surrounded by the butchered guards of the castle with a sword or a hammer or whatever in his hand, with his dead father right in front of him covered in blood, with Jarl with a sword impaled in his skull, like, how else do you take that? It'd be like Loki's like, and also Loki does not seem to be the type of guy that'll be like, wait, no, you don't understand. Let me explain. Like, that doesn't seem to be the situation what Loki would do. Like, Loki lets out a mighty war cry and jumps out of the castle and escapes. And be like, all right, I guess that happened, you know what I mean? Like, that's probably how it went down, and that's where Loki got, you know, eventually he left Elbaph for a while. Shanks went to go catch him, brought him back, and chained him to the tree. And that's where we are finding ourselves now, okay. But now, Gaban is beginning to question that. He's like, wait a minute, though. I know that's what we saw, and it seemed like an open and shut case, but I did feel some weird Haki that day. And going into the castle, I guess it was right there, like all the evidence, but like something didn't sit right, you know? So maybe we didn't have the whole story. Maybe we did miss something. So now Gaban's beginning to question himself, right? Okay? And so at this point, Hiruden is just like, wait, what? And then Luffy's like, wait, did you say Shanks? Shanks was there? And so all this is happening. And so Hiruden is just like, all right. Stanson! You go on ahead without me. By the way, I think Stanson is probably the first mate of the new Giant Warrior Pirates, like the vice captain. I think it makes the most sense. Anyway, Stancy's like, Stancing, go ahead without me. Also, Zoro and Sanji go as well. So now we are splitting into 2 teams. We're not even... One team stay down here and listen to Loki's sad crybaby backstory. The other team go ahead. Oh, that... I mean, yeah, it is Sanji and it is Zoro and it is like the Giant Warrior Pirates, the new Giant Warrior Pirates, but I don't know about this. We're really saving Luffy and Loki for the final boss fight, aren't we? Oh boy, yeah, okay. So anyway, Zoro and Sanji agree and they start moving towards the lift. Zoro takes a shot at Shanks. He's just like, oh my god, this dumb Shanks thing again. Almost like completely exasperated by the whole thing of just like, Luffy, let's go! Like, our crew is in danger. Hold on, Zoro. He said something about Shanks. It's freaking Shanks shit again. It's like, hey, what do you mean? You don't talk bad about Shanks. And then so, it's a little bit of a weird thing. I don't know. Like, listen, somebody actually mentioned, this was a comment a while ago. This was actually like right during the chapter where Loki bad-talked Shanks and then Luffy immediately went into Gear 4 and tried to punch him right in the head, right? And Loki, he was like barely able to move, like, whoa! I remember a comment back then where somebody was saying like, didn't Shanks teach Luffy not to overreact about dumb shit like that, right? That was the whole point of the bar scene where, you know, Shanks was getting the liquor poured on him by Higuma, and he was shit-talking him and everything, and Shanks didn't do anything about it. He kept his cool. He stayed chill. That's how a real pirate acts. That's how you do things, right? You know, and so and then later, when Luffy was kidnapped, that's when, you know, then all bets are off at that point. But, isn't that the whole point behind, like, the lessons? And Luffy even showed that at Jaya, when Bellamy was laughing at him in his face, telling him his dreams were bullshit and that they were never going to find Sky Island and all that crap. And Luffy didn't react in a violent way. He's just like, this is pointless. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to get all riled up over something like this, right? And then here, it's being depicted like anybody says anything bad about Shanks. Luffy almost immediately is like, what are you saying about Shanks? Take it back! Take it back! You know, it's just like, I don't know, man. I know Luffy looks up to Shanks. I know he views him as like his benefactor, the guy that put him on the path. He's his role model. I get that. But like, dial it down a little bit, Luffy. It's okay. I think what takes precedence right now is making sure all the children in your crew are safe, maybe not necessarily learning a little bit more about Shanks. My point of this is, Luffy could have gone on ahead. Luffy could have went with Zoro and Sanji, and they could have gone up to the upper layer. Hiruden could have stayed behind with Loki, heard the story, freed Loki. Loki and Hiruden go up to the top. And then after all of this is over, if we survive, then Loki and Hiruden can sit down with Luffy and explain to him, this is what happened with Shanks, this is what the story is about. What was more important is taking care of your crew at that moment. I don't know. I just feel like it's a little bit like Luffy stays behind to listen to the story when he probably should have gone on ahead, or whatever, it doesn't matter. So Loki turns over and is looking as like, hey, Scopper, Gaban, you're speaking up for me here? And he's just like, Hiruden, who else can get him talking? You might have different mothers, but you're still brothers, right? I saw this movie one time. It was called Four Brothers. They weren't really brothers, but they were brothers. And there was this other movie called Two Brothers. They saved the world from an alien onslaught of tomatoes. It was a crazy day. Anyway, so this is great. I love this. Hiruden goes over. So it's Hiruden and it's Luffy. I think Luffy's staying behind. I am fairly certain Luffy is staying behind. Yes, he is. Yes. Okay, so Hiruden goes over to Loki and says, you have 3 minutes to explain this, Loki. You have 3 minutes to tell me what the fuck happened 14 years ago, and how did our father die if you weren't the one responsible? So just keep in mind, everything from this point forward, that's Oda essentially saying, this has only taken 3 minutes. This is probably going to be like a 10-chapter flashback, because there is a flashback on top of a flashback, all right? So we're probably going to be here for a little while, just letting everybody know, 3 minutes, okay? Dude, remember, this is going to be the Tournament of Power all over again in Dragon Ball Super. Remember that? Everything's happening all at once. Crazy battles are happening. Like, only 2 minutes have happened in the Tournament of Power. Just like, all right, whatever. Okay. So he's, if you truly call yourself a warrior of Elbaph, Loki, if you truly consider yourself one of us, swear to our gods, Othin and Thor and Loki, well, maybe not Loki, and Tyr, swear to them all that you're telling the truth. And so Loki just begins to, like, get up and get all serious and be like, that's cruel, brother. You really want me to relive that day? I don't even want to remember that fateful day. Loki, we only have 3 minutes. Hurry the fuck up, all right? I don't even want to remember that day. But it was a stark, sunny afternoon in the middle of autumn. It's like, it's like trying to read a recipe. Context, I like to cook. I can't tell you how many recipes on the internet I've looked up, like, I want to make some coconut curry. And oh, that looks like a nice recipe. Click. It was a bright, sunny day when I first discovered this recipe, and you literally have to read an entire blog post. There's usually buttons to just jump to the recipe, but like, it's like, oh my god, does anybody actually read this? I just want to know how to make the curry. The coconut curry was delicious, by the way. It was really, really good. I liked it. But anyway, it's kind of like that. It's just like, it was an awful day. I don't want to remember it. But here it is. Okay. So, the people that are here to listen to this story, and Oda actually goes and shows us the faces of everybody that is currently there. We have Loki, of course. He is our storyteller. We have Gerd. We have Luffy that's hanging out there. We have Chopper, and we have Scopper, and we have Hiruden, of course. We do see one shot of the lift where we see Stanson, Road, and Goldberg helping Zoro and Sanji up on the lift. So yeah, Luffy is staying behind to listen to the story. And thus, we launch into the first flashback of this chapter that takes place 14 years ago. Elbaph, Oust Castle. All right, so hold on. I have a note of some... oh, it's on my foot. Okay, here we go. 14 years ago, I feel like I mentioned this already because that was... We did know that was when Harald got executed, so I brought a little bit of this stuff up before. But this was the same year that the Sea Train was completed, same year Ginny was kidnapped, which is kind of relevant because that's happening right now in the anime. This was the year Beppo fell off a Zoe, trying to find his brother Zeppo and washed out to sea, eventually would run into Law a year later in the North Blue. So... in this flashback here, it's relevant to know a couple of characters' ages. Shanks is 25 in this flashback. Loki is 49, which would make him around 24 or 25 in human years. We learn a little bit about how the giants age compared to humans. And it's actually a little bit of a retcon compared to something that Oda said previously. We'll get to that when we get to that. But Loki would be 49 in this backstory. And Jarl would be a spry 396-year-old. He was still in his 300s back in the day. At this point... I think that Ripley would be 66, and Gaban is around 60. We still don't know exactly how old Gaban is, which also might be relevant to something we're going to get here. But if Scopper is around the same age as Rayleigh right now, Rayleigh's 78, this would be 14 years prior. He's probably in his early 60s, and then Ripley would be 66, okay, because she's 80 exactly. Okay, so 14 years ago at the castle. Castle looks in great prime condition. You know, no damage yet, no overgrowth. We see multiple archways leading into the castle, a giant stairwell. Guards are posted at all the different points of the castle, right? And then we have Loki jumping up out of the sky, landing in front of the castle, heading on up. Prince Loki has returned! Sound the horns! So Loki is not an enemy of Elbaph at this point. People are welcoming him and saying, "Oh, Prince Loki, you're back! It's been such a long time!" And also, we see a cloud canoe also arriving at the castle, where Jarl is also there. So Jarl and Loki are entering the castle together, and they're being met rather warmly, okay? So they walk in, and we get a view of Loki at age 49. He is wielding a different hammer. Had to go back and check this. Ragnir is like basically just a big block of steel or lead on the end of a shaft. You know what I mean? This hammer is more rounded, kind of like a mallet, and it also has like a golden trim around it. It's a different hammer. It's not Ragnir. What would be funny is if the hammer he's using in the present is called Ragnir. This original hammer would be called Thor. That would be funny. So at any rate, Jarl walks in and he says, "Oh, he summoned you too, Loki." And he's like, "Well, yeah, something like that. This is my house, after all. I'm the prince. This is where I live. I'm allowed to come and go as I please, damn it." Right? And he's like, "Oh, you haven't grown sick of life yet, have you, old man?" And he's just like, "Oh, quiet you. I'm still a spry 300 and, what was it, 96? Wait, no, 390, wait. Did I get it wrong? Did I write it down and still get it wrong? Yeah, he's 408 years old in the present. He'd be 394. He'd be 394 years old. My God, I suck at math. Anyway, he's just like, yeah, 394 years old, Sonny. I could still kick your ass. You know, okay, so they're walking in, and the guards are all positioned there, and they're like, "The king is in the audience chamber. Your majesty, or I guess not your majesty, your princeness, your royalty." I don't know what the proper way to address a prince is. Anyway, so he walks in and he just says, "I wonder what the old man wants. You know, I don't really care for him very much right now since he's a government dog after all." So this is already after the point where Harald had begun negotiations with the world government. We kind of already assumed that's where this was going, trying to open up Elbaph, establish trade with the government. That alone was not the reason why Loki killed him. I had this idea that maybe after Loki found out he was working for the government and the Gods Knights were involved, maybe Loki walked in on a meeting between Harald and the Gods Knights. That is not what happened. Maybe then Loki went into a fit of rage and attacked his father. No, Loki already knew that his dad was working with the government, and in fact, the way this is implied, Loki's been away for a little while before this, okay? So we know he went out to sea, because that's where Shanks caught him, 6 years ago, right? So after this incident, he left, and for 8 years, he was outside of Elbaph, and then 6 years ago, Shanks caught him, right around the time Shanks also became a Yonko. Wonder if that lines up with anything at all. Probably not. At any rate, it seems like Loki was out traveling the sea before this as well, and he still has the attitude of, like, I go where I want kind of thing, right? Okay, so, the reason why he's not happy with Harald allying with the government is not because of anything the government is really doing with Elbaph or like trade negotiations or anything like that. No, the reason is they killed Rox. He allied with the guys that killed Rox. I looked out to that guy. I look up to that guy, damn it. And so he's talking about how, like, if he's trying to push Elbaph in a certain direction, I'm going to oppose that and all that stuff. Jarl is just like, keep it down. You're too loud, So they're walking to the chamber, and nothing seems out of the ordinary. Everything seems to be going all right. Remember, Loki looked up to Roxty Zebek, and at God Valley, we don't know the whole story, but Garp was there, and he was part of the government, and the story goes that Garp was the one that, defeated all the evil pirates that day. So the official story that spread around the world, remember Morgan's back when he was only 15 years old, was famous for spreading that story of God Valley, right? And in that story, he probably wrote something like, Garp, the hero of the Marines, single-handedly killed Roxty Zebek. Probably something like that, I would assume, right? So they're talking about how, at this point, the school has already been established. The school was built about 20 years ago, so this is a few years after that. And, everybody in Elbaph is growing up more for peace and prosperity and kindness and compassion, and Loki is against that. Loki is just like, it should be about war and battle. That's what giants do. That's what we're good at, right? And then, Jarl is like, well, it's just a sign of the times. I'm kind of happy that my great-great-grandchildren won't see war and that they'll live in peace, right? And then Loki just calls him a straight up. He's just like, oh, you suck, old man. You're a coward. It's your duty to whip them into shape for battle, to turn them into soldiers, right? That's their whole point, right? And so that's a little bit of a disagreement they have. And then they finally get to the throne room, right? Thank you for coming, Elder Jarl. Loki. Honorable Master Loki. It's a great honor to have you back. And then Loki's like, of course. Yes, of course, I'm sure it is an honor, right? And then the guy outside the door, he's like the little, like the doorman kind of guy. He's like, well, okay, let me just go in really quick and consult with the king, and then I'll let you in. And then Loki's like, yeah, screw that. Boom! He just kicks the guy, kicks the dude in the face through the door, breaks the door off his hinges, and they burst into the audience hall, okay? He's just like, open up, idiot! Old man, I'm back! And then he just walks into the audience chamber, and then we have a double-page spread, and it is epic as all hell. Inside of this audience chamber, we see the throne in the background, the throne that we saw earlier, and we see the silhouette, not the full body, but we see the silhouette of King Harald. He doesn't have the horns, he has his beard, he has his mustache. He looks kind of like Kaido. And he is surrounded by a retinue of guards that all have these, like, naganatas. They all kind of look like Whitebeard's Bicento, like his weapon. And they are, all of them, simultaneously running Harald through with these weapons, with, like, these spears and these naganatas, just stabbing him right through. Like, at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like at least 7 times he is getting stabbed by these things. Harald is also a really big man. He's way bigger than all the other giants. Those giants are all wearing like the horned helmets. I don't think they're being controlled by the Domi Reversi. They don't seem to have like the fangs and the evil aura. They might have been being controlled though. They do all have horns, but I'm not sure if that's just their helmets. It could just be their helmets, all right? And as for Harald, we don't know because he's drawn in silhouette. We can see his face, like a part of his face, his eyes and his mouth, and he's kind of frowning, which, I don't know what expression you would have if you got stabbed 7 times, but whatever, that's his expression. Like, you know. So, it's possible that Harald could have been Domi Reversi'd by something. We know, we don't see the, you know, the circle on the floor here, but we know from earlier that the circle was present in the throne room, so it's very possible he could have been possessed by Emu, or have been flipped by Emu, or whatever. And then he started going crazy and started murdering the guards, so the guards all stabbed him in retaliation, right? The guards, we don't really get a good look at their facial expressions either. One of them kind of just looks really angry, like, "Urgh!" You know, so I'm not really sure about that. I'm not really sure where that's going down. Jarl and Loki walk in and see this. Jarl is just like, Harald? Like, he is, like, stunned and completely shocked. And then Loki is like, what the hell are you guys doing? Okay, so that's that. All right, so then we're now cutting away to Gaban's house. Gaban and Ripley's house, I guess I should say. And it's located on one of the branches of the tree overlooking the castle. The view looks beautiful, okay? So it's above the Western Village, right? So we see Shanks and Gaban chilling out in a hot spring together. Okay, and this is relevant because Shanks has a tattoo on his arm. And yes, it's the arm that got ripped off by the Sea King in Chapter 1. Oh boy, so the tattoo, I was going to draw it, but actually I could really quick. It's not really hard to draw. Hold on a minute. All right. I'm no Pablo Picasso, but I'll give it my best here. All right, this will be no mural, but I'll be all right. I was like, let's see. It's a circle. And then that's okay, and then it's got like little hearts on the end of it. It honestly, like, unironically kind of looks like the fucking Zodiac killer symbol. Shanks is the Zodiac! Like, I'm not even kidding, that's kind of what it looks like. Look it up to see what it looks like. Okay, this is it right here. Yeah, this is what it is. So it's like a circle and then 2, you know, intersecting lines that are perpendicular to one another, and then on the edges of each one, like, look like little hearts. I'm pretty sure that's what they are. They don't look like arrows. They don't look like triangles. They kind of do look like they have, like, the little dimples at the top of, like, the symbol. So it really does look like a heart, right? Where'd the cap of the Sharpie go? Ah, found it. Okay, so that's what we have, all right? So whew, that is probably the mark that that was spoke about by Killingham, that you need to have that to travel through the abyss. We know Shamrock and Shanks are brothers. We know Shanks was found at God Valley. Shanks is most likely a member of, well, definitely is a member of the Figarland family. That is 100% confirmed because of Shamrock, okay? So, from what we a little bit understand about Shanks' backstory is, After the Roger Pirates disbanded, Shanks would have been 15 years old when Roger got executed. He asks Buggy to journey with him. Buggy turns him down. They go their separate ways at Logtown. There is a big blank period between when Shanks was 15 to when he was 27, because when he was 27 is when he, well, okay, actually for that one, I will ask everybody pull out your first volume of One Piece. Yes, pull out the first volume. This will be relevant, and turn to page 8. All right. In a small harbor village, 1 year ago, a pirate ship made its base on this island. Okay, so this is the red force right here, and it says 1 year ago. I bring this up because Shanks, if this is 14 years ago, Shanks is 25, okay? I would say he met Luffy when he was 27. If Oda's going with this, Shanks was based in Fuchsia for an entire year before the incident with the Gumu Gumu no Mi and Shanks getting his arm bit off occurred, okay? So, technically speaking, Shanks is going to meet Luffy a year after this. Just letting you know. If that's the case, unless Oda retcons it. I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up. Okay. So, they're hanging out in this hot spring at Gaban's place. And Gaban says, wow, it's been a while since we all had a bath together, isn't it? Man, must have been 3, maybe 4 years, something like that. Shanks says, ha, get real. Dude, it's been 10 years since the captain died. It's been 10 years, it's been a decade already. And Gaban's like, huh, that long, eh? Must feel like forever ago to you, huh? Time dilation. Elbaph is filled with time. Time that goes by slowly than the rest of the world. Guitar solo. Yeah, so, I mean, there's time dilation shenanigans, wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey bullshit going on here. You can't say otherwise, okay? There's no fucking way that Gaban is like, yeah, when was the last time I saw you, Shanks? Like 3 years ago? It's been 10. It's like, that's not in there for a joke, okay? That is the case. So, this actually works because giants, from what we're going to learn later in this chapter, is a little bit of a retcon, are age about 3 times that of a human, right? So basically, in order to get a human age in giant years, you take the giant's age and divide it by 3. So Dory and Broggy are 160 right now. You divide that by 3, you get like 50-something, okay? Right? Awesome. I bring this up because at one point, Oda did say in an SBS that the giants are only half that. You know, so you cut a giant's age in half, and that's the human age they are. That is corrected at the end of this chapter by King Harald. They actually, Oda explains in the chapter that King Harald, at a certain age, in his human years, he would only be 15. He was 45 at the end of the chapter, and he's 15 in human years. That's divided by 3, not divided by 2. I think that does make more sense. Also, given the fact it was mentioned many times that giants live about 3 times as long as a human. That was mentioned, okay? So, if we're going along with that logic here, Gaban thought, since the time Roger was executed, assuming that Gaban went immediately after Roger's crew to Elbaph, which we can assume that he did. Colin was born 20 years ago, and we do see a baby Colin here. Colin was 6, but he was still an infant, essentially. He would have been like 2, I guess, at this point. Let's assume Gaban, right after the crew disbanded, he went to Elbaph, and he got together with Ripley, and then a few years later, I would assume, I don't know, giant pregnancy probably takes a little longer than 9 months, I would assume, so it took a while for Gaban and Ripley to have Colin, whatever. Okay, so this works perfectly because if you take 10 years divided by 3, you get 3.3. 3, 3, 3, 3. 3.3 years. Okay, you get 3 1/3, okay? Gaban couldn't remember. Was it 3 years ago? Or was it 4 years ago? It's got to be getting close to 4 years, right? Somewhere between 3 and 4, 3.3 years, okay? That is how long the time dilation works. 3.3 years in Elbaph is 10 years on the outside. 1 year in Elbaph would be 3 years on the outside. And let's say however long the Straw Hats are spending there is also ×3 on the outside. So once the Straw Hats leave Elbaph, we're gonna have some like, oh, you guys were gone for like 3 months. It's like, oh shit. It's gonna be something like that. It's gonna be something like that. It also makes sense with Louis Arnault's message, do not linger in Elbaph for too long now. Yeah, we got it. We got the time dilation talk. Okay. Moving on from that, because there's even more to discuss, Shanks says, yeah, my life has completely changed. Honestly, I just wanted to be a carefree pirate, sailing the seas with Buggy. That would have been the life. Still, here in Elbaph, there are some things I'd like to know. And then Gaban says, well, it's understandable. You are the child of destiny, after all. Are you... Really? Come on now, we're doing the child of destiny. You're teasing us, Oda. You're teasing us. I'm saying, Shanks would have been the main character. You know, I love this trope. I actually do, okay? Not really the prophecy child shit, but I love the trope of, like, there's a character in your manga that would have been the main character of their own separate manga. They're so, like, interesting. In Black Clover, it's Yami. Yami was essentially an isekai protagonist in his day. Got really strong, but it's not his story, it's Asta's. Same thing here. Shanks has a whole protagonist backstory going on, right? Found by Roger, raised by King of the Pirates, Roger dies, tragic. Then he learns about his real lineage, and he goes back to Marijois to see what it was all about, and then he decided to leave and go back to his pirating roots. That's protagonist. That's an entire trilogy of books right there, okay? Yeah, anyway, Shanks says, yeah, my life's completely changed. And Gaban calls him a child of destiny, but he also says, let's not dwell on those tricky topics today, Shanks. Let's just leave a little breadcrumb trail of clues for the audience to learn about stuff, and then we'll move on to that later. Let's talk about other things. Let's not talk about the fact you have an abyss mark on your arm right now. Let's not mention that. Let's just move forward, right? Hey, remember Little Garden? Remember Little Garden when we saw Dorian Broggy all those years ago? Oh, yeah, I remember that. Oh, man, okay. Oh, yeah, going back to the abyss mark before I forget that. So... the idea is, yeah, he was approached by the God's Knights or told or something, hey, you're actually a part of us. And so he went back and he lived there for a little while. The idea is he did stay in Marijois for a time. It wasn't just like a day or two. He stayed there for a while, maybe because of like doing some soul searching. I mean, Shanks was in his late teenage years at this point. It's like you go on a backpacking trip through Europe or something. You gotta find yourself, right? So he went to Marijois and he's like, all right, well... I guess this is my family, like my real family, my brother and my father and maybe his mother, and it's like, okay, all right, let's see how this goes. And he lived there for, I guess, a few years, and then decided, was even given the abyss mark, like, you are now one of us. And then Shanks decided at a certain point, like, no, I don't want this. I don't want this lifestyle anymore. And he opted to leave. He chose to leave. And then here we are. So this is the arm that he loses to the Lord of the Coast. I looked it up because I wasn't exactly 100% sure. We don't see Shanks like without his shirt to actually see the extent of the wound. But I believe he's amputated below the deltoid, which is just a fancy way of saying shoulder, right? Yeah. So I think like everything lower than this is gone, okay? So the mark is like right here, like right kind of on his bicep, sort of like in between his elbow and his shoulder, okay, is where he's missing, is where his arm got cut off, and that's where the tattoo was, okay? So, not to take anything away when Shanks, you know, bet his arm on the new era and he trusted Luffy and everything, but it does kind of give you the whole idea now of maybe that was the point. Maybe, because Shanks had a pirate crew at that point. He already had the red-haired pirates like Yasop and Ben Beckman and Lucky Roo and Monster and Bonk Punch and Lime Juice. They were all part of the crew at this point. And he had a crew. And so maybe Shanks was still maybe faltering a little bit on like, you know, it's like I was a pirate under Roger and then I'm a noble. I'm technically a celestial dragon, but I'm also a pirate, so I don't know about this. And then maybe meeting Luffy was the thing that finally cemented it in Shanks's mind of like, nope, I know who I am, and I know what I gotta do. And he gives the straw hat to Luffy, and then he allows the Lord of the Coast to bite his arm off and been like, not only am I giving up my arm for Luffy, but I'm also giving up my arm to remove the mark. Probably can't remove it on your own. I'm assuming you can't just get that shit lasered off, right? So get it. Kizaru could actually open a really good business in removing tattoos, now that I think about it. But anyway, no, he'd opted for like, take the arm, and then there you go. There it is. All right. So, yeah. I don't know about this one. I'm going to throw it out there. Gaban also says, he's like, 3 or 4 years, huh? And Shanks is like, no, it hasn't. It's been 10 years. He's like, must feel like forever for you, though. Now, he could just be saying that because Shanks has went through a lot of shit, probably, in the last 10 years, right? Learning a lot about his past and his lineage and his family and all that stuff, right? I only bring this up because there are 2 magical trees in the world of One Piece that are really important, that are really big. Atom tree, there's more than one, but this is the main atom wood tree, where if this is what I think it is, time dilates. So 3 to 4 years on Elbaph is 10 years on the outside world, times 3. There happens to be another really giant tree called Eve, and that tree is right underneath Marijois because it's right where Fishman Island is that apparently goes up through the Red Line. Like, the Eve tree is, I guess, embedded in the Red Line itself, and then it branches off to make the mangrove trees at the Sabaody Archipelago. And on the other side, we see bubbles over where the G1 base, well, it used to be G1, it's Marine HQ right now, right? So all that area is. So I'm just saying, like, if in Elbaph it's times 3 on the outside world, then what if it's inverted at Marijois? 3 years would be 1 year in the outside world. So time goes faster in Marijois than it would be in the outside world, right? I don't know. Maybe that could be the case. I'd have to go back and check, like, every instance of being in Marijois and seeing out if time does flow differently there. Or, Gaban could just be talking about all the shit that's happening in Shanks' life as of late. Okay, Ripley shows up. Ripley pops her head into the bath, and she's like, hot enough for you, Yasan? Man, they are a very passionate couple, I am sure. And Shanks is there too, and Shanks is like, whoa, you scared me. And so we get to see that after all that crazy, it was like 3 panels that took me like 15 minutes to go through. But we see Ripley there, and she has baby Colin in her arms, and then she has a lingonberry pie tart kind of thing, and then Shanks and Gaban step out of the bath, and they start eating the pie, and Ripley says, oh, hey, Shanks, do you have any spicy stories about Gaban back in the day? And Shanks is like, oh, about Gaban? Yeah, I got a bunch. Every single time we made port, he would run off to the pleasure district, and Gaban is just like, hey, shut up, shut up, shut up, and just like drag him back. So that was funny. Oh, Shanks has a scar, which shouldn't be really surprising. Like I said, he had the scar when he met Luffy very shortly after this meeting here. He got the scar from Blackbeard at some point after Roger died to here. So at some point from 15 to 25, he got the scar, okay? Oh my god. Moving on to the conversation, Gaban says, hey, do you know King Harald? You met him, right, when you were up at Marijois? And he's like, yeah. Shanks is like, yeah, I met him up there. I met him at Marijois. We got along all right. Probably talking about a reverie, which means... Oh, wait, hold on a minute. Okay, let's wind back the clock a little bit here. Okay, so reverie year was this year in One Piece, okay? So 4 years ago, there would have been a reverie. 8 years ago, there would have been a reverie. I think that was the reverie where Wapol slapped Vivi. 12 years ago, there would have been a reverie. 16 years ago, there would have been a reverie. And then 20 years ago, there would have been a reverie. Oh, shit. There would have been a reverie the year Roger was executed. Wow. Can you imagine that one? Oh, dude. Okay. So if there was a reverie, Roger was executed. Obviously, Shanks wasn't at that one. But he could have been there. Depending on when Shanks went to go and meet with, the Celestial Dragons and stuff, could have been. Oh, wait. We also know... I think it was in Strong World, in the Prelude manga to Strong World, where we see Actually, I have it. Hold on. I know I'm running off camera a lot for this one. Records, ladies and gentlemen. We gotta... Okay, hold on. Okay, Strong World manga. This is kind of canon. It's sort of canon. It's half canon. I don't know. Okay, right here. Yeah, you see Shanks going to meet Yasopp. Kind of right here. See that? And it says, I hear of a reputation of a man named Yasopp. Oh, me? Shanks. I'm a pirate. And this is supposed to be 20 years ago, I think. Or like immediately after Roger's execution, something like that. I think it's supposed to be like shortly after. I'm not sure. And I don't even know if that's canon, to be honest with you. Like, or Oda's going to stick to that. I'm not sure. But I'm just saying, if Shanks was at a reverie, he would have met Harold there. He would have had to stay in Marijois for a bit, for a little while, right? He would have had to. Anyway, Shanks says, we couldn't speak freely in the Holy Land. But now that we're both in Elbaph, I'd like to ask him some questions. I really want to talk to him about some things. We couldn't really talk much in Marijois before it's too late. So there was probably something that happened in Marijois where Harold agreed to like bend the knee to the government or agree to the government's deals, and Shanks was like, ooh, that's not a good idea, but I can't tell you it's not a good idea here, so I gotta tell you later. And so here we are now, okay? That day, the massacre at the castle took place, and we see massive amounts of Conqueror's Haki shooting out of Aris Castle, very similar to like Emu's Haki, right? Elbaph's most beloved king, Harold the Benevolent, lost his life on this day. And then you see Gaban's house and everything shaking, and that's probably when they were like, what's going on? We need to go check. And it's like, they closed the gates to the castle, so the castle gates were locked from the inside. All these other people are trying to get out. They can't get out, and they all died. We see all the guards getting massacred. We see Jarl in silhouette getting the sword stabbed through his skull, and we see a mysterious individual, we don't know who it is, unlocking a treasure room vault and going in and seeing the chest of the devil fruit, right? And this is the forbidden devil fruit passed down within Elbaph. But just how did this man come to be so highly regarded by his people? That's the narrator talking about Harold, okay? So we don't know if it was Loki or who it was that opened up the treasure door and went after the legendary devil fruit of Elbaph, or even what it is. We still don't know that yet. Not sure. Last scene of the chapter. God, last double page spread of the chapter. We go back in time even further to 109 years ago. Oh man, a long, long time ago. 109 years before the present. All right, let's cover that really quick. Okay, so we don't have anything specifically for 109 years ago, but just to give you some context, 113 years ago is when Mother Caramel became the Mountain Witch, and she started trafficking everybody through her, you know, like contacts and Cypherpole and stuff like that into the government. 116 years ago is when the white lead was found in Flevance, but they didn't do anything about it. And then 107 years ago, so like 2 years after this, is when Clover was born. Just some stuff. Dorian Broggy would have been 51 years old at this point, which would have made them around 17 years old in terms of like their biologically 17 years old. Yeah, Loki wouldn't have been born yet, obviously. Jarl, I actually didn't write this down. All right, 408 minus 109. 299 years old is what Jarl would have been. He would have been younger even when... Oh, Jarl would have still been alive at this point, too. And then Saul would have been 6. No, Saul would have been 18. He would have been 6 in human years, but he would have been 18 years old in giant years. All right. There you go. Okay, so 109 years ago, if you asked anyone what the scariest thing on the sea was, it would have been the giant warrior pirates. And we see Dorian Broggy and then Oimo and Kashi in their younger years traveling the sea, causing havoc, burning towns down, just being awful, awful pirate giants, okay? In that era, even ships from the Land of Giants, every ship from the Land of Giants, doesn't matter who it was, they were feared and people ran in terror back in those days. And we see King Harold in his younger years at the age of 45. However, it is specifically said just 15 years in human terms is when he became the king. So he became a king relatively young. We have like a Joffrey situation going on here, okay? So his dad must have died, and he became the new king when he was only like 45, which is only like 15 in giant years. And his personality back then, very much like Loki. He had the horns back then, same as Loki, and he goes into a town, and he's looking around, and there's this one giant that's like, you know, terrorizing the castle, and he's like, hey, I hear they have a very pretty princess in this castle. He's trying to like peek into the castle, and then Harald comes up out of nowhere, and just like how Loki shoved the guard through the door, he kicks his giant like companion into the fucking castle wall, knocks him over, nearly knocking over the whole castle. Actually, yeah, demolishing the entire castle in the process. Knocks him over. Everybody's running in terror. The king and the princess are like, ah! You know? Remarkably enough, Harald was pure scum. And then we just have Harald laughing like, whoops, my foot slipped. Boom! Just destroyed the entire royalty of an entire island. You know? And his laughter style is revealed. Bara ha 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 ha. Bara ha ha ha. And he's like, go ahead, tell me, you puny weaklings, who your god is now. And then that's the end of the chapter. No break next week. So I guess we're just gonna start, like, okay, 14 years ago and then 109 years ago, and we're just gonna stick to that and then go forward, I guess. We're gonna be here a while. Don't worry, it's all taking place within 3 minutes. Oh man, this is wild. How is Loki even cramming this entire story in 3 minutes? Oh yes, it was a crazy day. I don't want to even remember it. Anyway, back in the day, 109 years ago, my father was a piece of scum, just like me. Anyway, he stomped around an entire town, you know, just like, okay, we gotta hurry. Hiruden's there, like, I'm keeping track of this, Loki. It's just like, all right. Anyway, I don't even know where to start. Harald has a pretty cool sword. He has a big-ass sword. He's huge, same size as Loki. Got the horns. He's got the tattoo. Same kind of tattoos that Ripley has. Ripley has one of the lines on her face. Harald has two. We saw them during the portrait we saw in the castle of him. Yeah. A lot of stuff to break down here. Who was the mysterious person that stole the devil fruit? How did Harald go from being an asshole to a good guy to back being an asshole again? Not really sure about that. What's the deal with Shanks having a tattoo on his arm about the abyss? How many years did he spend in Marijois? Is there time dilation in Elbaph? Is there time dilation in Marijois? That one's more for me, really. I'm just like, the two trees, you know what I mean? Yeah. When did Ripley and Gaban get it on? When did it happen? Yeah, there's just a lot of stuff. And then, like, all the stuff before then. You know what I mean? Like the whole Zoro conquers Haki thing. Like, damn, this was a long chapter. I would have packed a lot into this. And Kawamatsu got a brand new hat. Cherish that hat, Kawamatsu. That's the video. Let me know how you feel about all of this below, because there's a lot of stuff to unpack here. Thanks for watching, everybody. TechEgg signing out. Bye.